Let me put it this way, that whenever we do win any type of an award, we immediately publish it to all of our people, the people internal at Toyota Canada, our dealers, the salespeople, and even the service and parts people. It's a great motivator.
Motoring 91 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 91. Now you may notice I'm wearing a tuxedo, and tuxedos are usually worn at special occasions, right? Well, this is a special occasion for the program because this week we are going to select our top cars for the 91 model year as well as our overall car of the year. We're also going to look back at some of the more unusual things that have happened while shooting this program but never made it to the air. Well, they will this week. And joining me for this special edition of Motoring 91, a couple of our regulars. Graham Fletcher, of course, is behind the wheel each week on Test Drive, and Jim Kenzie has come out of Kenzie's Corner, and Jim, of course, never at a loss for words when it comes to commenting on the automobile industry. Now, to begin, I've got one question to ask both of you. Will the model year 1991 be a good one for the consumer out there?
I think it's going to be terrific. There's a lot of very good product out there, and it really doesn't matter if you're looking for a grocery getter or something a little more exotic. The product is right.
Jim?
Well, it's going to be Fat City for the consumer, Brad, because the dealers are hungry, the interest rates are low, and the rebates are in place. Never been a better time to buy a new car.
All right, now let's get to our first category, and Graham has picked 3 finalists in each category. And we're going to begin with our sports car of the year.
In the sports car category, the 3 finalists are the Nissan 300ZX, the Dodge Stealth, and the Acura NSX. The 300 and the Stealth both offer copious amounts of horsepower, superb handling characteristics, and a persona that oozes class and style. The winner, though, is the Acura NSX. Much of the engineering excellence found in this car has been gleaned from Honda's very successful Formula One venture, making this one of the world's very few street-legal race cars.
Well, of all of the cars I've tested, the NSX definitely got the biggest reaction from the people on the street.
Well, I got a chance to drive the car, and I loved it. How about you, Mr. Kenzie?
Well, you know, the Dodge Stealth is about half the price of an NSX, and it's way more than half the car, but overall, I can't argue with the choice of the Acura because it's a landmark automobile.
Now, one thing I've noticed over the years is that the sports car scene is changing.
Oh, you bet, Brad. You know, in the 60s, the MGs and Triumphs, they were noisy and they were cold and they rode like trucks, and now you've got cars like these 3 we mentioned. They're air-conditioned, they got power seats, and they're comfortable, and yet performance is still what they're all about.
All right, we're now going to take a short break, but we come back, we are going to choose our top family sedan. That and much more as this special edition of Motoring 91 continues.
Do it again. To give you some idea of just how smooth the Infinity's engine is, there you have it. A Luniazzi balanced on a running engine. Now, there's not too many vehicles. Son of a stand up! Stand up!
One of the questions I get asked most frequently is how can I choose a car that's going to be safe? Well, that's not an easy thing to do. First of all cars sold in Canada have to have passed the same
safety standards.
Thank you.
I hope you're rolling on that.
You rolling on that?
Yeah.
Do that one again?
Take 2. Hey. Hi, I'm Alan Jr. You're watching Motoring 91. Okay. This is Motoring 91.
The 3 finalists in the common sense category are the Nissan Sentra, the Honda Accord, and the Ford Taurus. The Taurus was a gamble for Ford. Its development costs could have sounded the death knell for the company if the car had been a flop. I favour the SHO version of the Taurus, but in any form the car is a winner. The new Sentra is bound to be a winner too. It offers pep, style and affordability as well as an ABS option, something rather rare in lower priced cars. The winner here is the Honda Accord. In topping 370,000 sales in 1 year, it became North America's favourite family sedan, and I, for one, can't argue with that.
Nice car, Graham, but the family sedan, is that maybe one of the more boring categories?
Are you kidding me? With 220 horses in the SHO? Get real.
So why didn't it win, Graham? But Brad, really, the other part of that is that this is where the financial action is. The Canadian consumer buys cars like this, and if you want to be a player in this business, you got to have a car in that segment.
Hey, I'm the guy, of course, just asking the questions. And a question that could be asked is whether you, the consumer, or the car manufacturers put any real importance on Car of the Year awards. Well, for that story, let's join Steve Grant.
The Blainville Test Center just outside Montreal is usually reserved for impartial testing of safety standards. Well, this time around, the organizers are anything but impartial. Subaru has invited members of the Automotive Journalists of Canada to test drive its Legacy Turbo against the competition. Now, the result will hopefully mean a vote from us for an AJAC award. The Legacy Turbo's competition for Best New Sedan is the Volkswagen Passat and the Infiniti G20. We were invited to bask in the sunshine in Blainville and take part in what Subaru called a give 'em hell comparison.
Well, what we did is we bought 2 Passats and we bought 2 G20 Infinitis, and these are the finalists in the family sedan category this year. And we felt that we could provide a fair and equal platform for comparisons to be done by the journalists and let the better car win.
Welcome to sunny Montreal. I'm so mechanical I can't put my own coat on. Later on, the final test of the family sedan category is 2 guys, I pretend I'm drunk, and 2 guys try to load me in the back of a car. How important is it to win an award like an AJAC award?
I think in our particular case it's very important, more so than a lot of the competitors, because some research that we performed roughly a year ago showed that the awareness level of Subaru and particularly the products we build is very, very low in Canada. In some cases there's even confusion as to what the country of origin is for the product. So anything that could help build that awareness to the consumer generally or at large is very, very important to us, and consequently we put a lot of effort into doing what's necessary to help the journalists come to a decision, and we feel very confident in the product we're putting forth in the category.
When you have 65 journalists from across the country voting on different categories in a very independent basis, I think that has a lot of weight to it. And our marketing last year, winning the Sedan of the Year for the Legacy, we used it quite a bit.
But you just might remember that Subarus are the only cars in the world with the hill holder, a small clutch-activated brake that prevents rollback on uphill starts. To test drive the 1990 Sedan of the Year, visit your local Subaru dealer.
Do you think an award winner, when used as part of your advertising, will sway people when they get to the buying stage?
I don't know if it would sway them. What it might do initially is attract attention to the car. And again, going back to what I said earlier on, the awareness is our problem. So the award will at least draw attention to our product and bring the awareness level up. Once we get someone in to look at it, we feel very confident that we have a good opportunity to sell a car.
I think over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been so much emphasis by the automobile companies on awards that there's beginning to be more credibility in the awards. People go out, they find that a company won an award for whatever in their automobile manufacturing, and the consumer goes out, tries that automobile, and finds out that what he read or what the award was given for was true. So there's credibility, and I think it is, because of the educated individual today, I think it does have an influence on his purchase.
The jury is still out on the question of whether consumers are in fact swayed by these awards, but the manufacturers are certainly watching. According to the Automotive News, Toyota in the States reportedly pulled its advertising from Road and Track magazine after no Toyota or Lexus product made the magazine's top 10 best car list. Toyota was expected to spend more than $1.5 million in the publication over a year.
We put a great deal of emphasis on any awards that are given out, more particularly AJAC, CAA, because of the credibility of these particular awards. AJAC awards are given by the automotive journalists in Canada, and when you consider that they try all types of automobiles, there certainly is a great deal of credibility to that when they pick a winner out of the total group, and they're very learned people about it. So we put a lot of emphasis on any type of awards that we can win with our automobiles.
Meanwhile, back on the track, Jim Kenzie was taking the Give 'em Hell theme quite literally. Well, at least we have something to talk about on the way home.
Absolutely. And of course, it's always got to be me, right?
And as for what car came out on top, well, I don't think anyone is about to tip their hat, but everyone agrees the race for new sedan this year will be extremely tight.
they each have differing points which, you know, favor each one individually in turn. Overall, it would be hard for me to make a decision at this point. I'd like to think a little about what I've done today before I make a decision.
Well, I had more wheel time with one of the three cars prior to coming here today, and so I was thinking very strongly about that car. But having driven all three, there are certain parts of each car that are very interesting, and it's a tough one. This particular class, the family sedan class, I think is the toughest call for me to make personally.
Well, you know, there's no doubt that with so many models out there on the market that the consumers, I think, are paying a lot more attention to what you auto journalists have got to say and write about the cars that you drive. Now, we're now going to move on to our next category. Now, Graham has already looked at the family sedan, but he's now going to look at his favorite sedan when money's no object.
If money were no object, the three cars that would top my shopping list would be the Audi V8, the Lexus LS400, and the Infiniti Q45. The Audi offers power, comfort, and superb security in the form of a full-time four-wheel drive system. The winner in this category, though, came down to a toss-up between the Lexus and the Infiniti. Both are capable of running rings around the competition. Both feature a sophisticated anti-lock brake system which works hand-in-hand with an equally sophisticated traction control system. In the end, it was a superior powertrain that tipped the scale, and so the winner of the money no object category is the Infiniti Q45.
So there you have it. If Graham Fletcher had a blank check, he would be driving an Infiniti Q45. Now, he's been dying to say something all through that video. What is it?
Well, Brad, if you've got all the money in the world, what are you worrying about cheap cars like that? That's only 54 grand. Go for a $100,000 BMW 750i. Got a V12 engine, 300 horsepower. That's a car for which money's no object.
I get the feeling he's just getting warmed up. And when we come back, we're going to talk to our resident mechanic, Bill Gardner. He'll have a few thoughts on our selections, and Jim and Graham will also tell us the worst car they have driven for 91. That and much more as our special edition of Motoring 91 continues.
Yes, I think it would, because it means they've taken a real look at the different aspects of a car, and if it runs well, if it's built well, yes, it would influence me.
I don't really think it would personally influence me, because a lot of those award-winning cars are the more expensive models. Example, Volvos and, for safety and things like that. But some of the newer models, some of the, like the Nissans, and some of them are pretty sharp, and they're pretty reasonably priced, but it wouldn't influence my decision.
Yes, it would greatly. Naturally, if it's picked by a prestigious, people that that give out awards like that, sure, you naturally go after that, sure.
Well, we're continuing with our special edition of Motoring 91 as we select our favorite cars of the year. Now, we're on location here at the Autolin dealership in Oakville, Ontario, home to a lot of exotic cars. Now, this car is the Lotus Esprit Turbo, and they tell me here at Autolin that pretty soon the Lotus Elan will be available. It's the convertible. Now, this has a price tag of $126,000. The convertible will have a price tag of $55,000. Just in case you're interested. All right, we're now going to join a man who would love to get his hands on one of these, and that, of course, is our resident mechanic, Bill Gardner. And I just bet you that Bill has an opinion on the Car of the Year selections.
You know, I really don't care which vehicle, car, truck, or otherwise you guys pick for Car of the Year. Sooner or later, you're going to have to bring it to me to get it fixed. And this week, that's what we want to talk about, is the things that have changed in the service and repair industry. Part prices have changed drastically, and service procedures have changed incredibly over the last few years. Now, the gas filter in my left hand would be typical of the same vehicle from 87 and up, which has fuel injection. It's a much larger filter, as you can see. It's in a metal canister, has threaded fittings at both ends, and O-rings to seal the pressure of the fuel injection system. Now, this filter is $30.30, and that gives you an idea compared to that $1.99 filter that went in the carburetor. There's been a big change in the price of that part. Another area where there's been a large change is shock absorbers. The front shocks of many rear-wheel drive cars were $25 to $30, and you could just bolt them on with 2 bolts at the bottom and a single stud or nut at the top. Many of today's front-wheel drive cars, in fact, almost all of them have a McPherson strut type shock that's an integral stressed member of the suspension of that car. It's a much larger, more complicated, more expensive shock. $100 to $125 each is not uncommon, and you'll have to make a wheel alignment on that car anytime you disturb or replace that shock absorber. So there's an area where things have really changed price-wise. Now, not only have the price of parts changed, but the amount of time required to replace them has changed as well. And you can see that the access to some of them, for example, this heater blower motor, is jammed right in the corner of the fender. We're going to have to remove some other components in order to get this part out. Now, that's the case in many parts of today's cars and light trucks. And another area, perfect example, is the water pump of this vehicle. It's just behind that pulley, but in order to get it out, you're going to have to remove a number of other brackets and pulleys that are all in the way. Things like air conditioning and other options add to the cost of servicing a part like that. Another item, perfect example, is the air filter of this minivan. We've already removed the wing nut and air cleaner lid. We've even taken off the stud that the wing nut threads onto, and we still can't quite pull that air filter out of the housing. If we get it out, we're going to end up damaging it, and we'd also damage the new one installing it. So we'd have to remove the engine cover or doghouse, and that takes quite a bit of time in order to replace a simple component just like an air filter. Now, I said before, I used to be a fan of those old heavyweights, but I've been sold on the new lightweight, more streamlined vehicles. They're just that much nicer to drive and a tremendous advantage on fuel economy. The bottom line is, though, that things have changed drastically, and you've got to be prepared to pay a little bit extra for parts and labor costs on these new vehicles. I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 91.
Well, Graham, you're a licensed mechanic, but as Bill Gardner says, I think the backyard mechanic is a dying breed.
Very much so. With the complexity under the hood now, basically all you can do is look.
And for $65 an hour, I don't want any mechanic looking for long.
All right. Now, we've still got the minivan of the year to come and our car of the year. But first, gentlemen, I would like to know, out of all the cars you've driven this year, what is your least favorite, Jim?
Not including my 76 Hornet?
Not including.
Okay, well, the car that disappointed me the most, and I'm not calling it a bad car, as Graham said, there are no bad cars anymore, but the biggest disappointment was the Lexus ES250. Now, this isn't the LS400 luxury car we saw earlier. It's essentially a rebodied Camry with a wooden dashboard for like $8,000 more than a Camry, and I just didn't see the value in it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and if I can put in a plug for one of my personal favorites, and that was the 400, the Lexus, a great car. How about you, Graham?
For me, it has to be the Luminar APV. It's just a disaster from the driver's standpoint. The nose slopes away so sharply, and the opposed wiper system takes all of the garbage off the windshield and neatly deposits on these two huge triangular windows on either side of the driver. So you essentially drive down a tunnel. I mean, the Luminar was just plain ugly, and it went downhill from there.
Okay, Graham, well, no pulling punches here on Motoring 91, and I'll bet you the Lumina APV will not be included in our next category, because our next category is for Top Minivan for 1991.
In this category, it came down to a straight shootout between the Chrysler Magic Wagon and the Mazda MPV. The Magic Wagon has been the savior of Chrysler's corporate bacon, and as such keeps said company as one of the big three. The MPV, in terms of quality, definitely has what it takes. The difference in my mind comes down to the wheels that do the driving. In our climate, front wins over rear every time, and as both offer four-wheel drive, the Magic Wagon gets the nod here.
Yeah, that's the winner and still champion. And you know, Chrysler's starting to sell that thing overseas, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Caravan take Europe by storm over the next 5 years, just the way it's taken North America.
Okay, Jim, well, our next category could possibly be the fastest growing segment in the automobile industry, the sport utility. Now let's have a look at Graham's three finalists.
This category comprises of some of my favorite vehicles, the Ford Explorer, the Nissan Pathfinder, and the Toyota 4Runner. For many years, all of these vehicles suffered because they did not have four-door models. They all now do. They also have become synonymous with reliable off-roading and comfortable city cruising, hence the sport utility designation. The winner of this category is the Ford Explorer. This vehicle features all the positives of the competition, minus some of their negatives.
We're now driving through the countryside in Sweden. I'd like to show you just how civilized driving can be in this country. Now, I'm on a two-lane highway. As you can see now, I'm approaching a truck driving just below the speed limit. Now, in North America, this could cause a very stressful, if not dangerous, passing situation. But watch what happens here in Sweden. I approach the truck, and he stays on the road and doesn't let me. It's real stressful in Sweden.
You know? So I said to the guy, why can't I have a cell phone? Everybody else has got a phone.
Man, it's hot in here.
Did that work even though I overshot? Yeah, okay.
Best car I've ever owned? It was a 76 Chevette. And it was compact, easy on gas, didn't take a lot of maintenance, and I enjoyed it. It was a comfortable car to ride in.
Well, I own a 78 Cutlass Supreme, and it just didn't cost anything, and it's just been keeping running great ever since.
You're asking the wrong person, okay, because the last car I had was a Bug, and it was just a real tank.
BMW. Just its overall handling, performance, just a classy car.
The best car I ever owned in my life was a 29 Nash.
And why was that?
Because it was really built solid. I could fix it with a hairpin. Try to do that with one of your cars today.
Well, it's now the time we've all been waiting for. Motoring 91 selection for Car of the Year as selected by Graham Fletcher. And Graham, what were the criteria used in selecting your Car of the Year?
I was looking for excellence in execution, in the engineering contained in the vehicle, but above all, it had to be fun to drive.
Okay, sounds good to me. So here are the 3 finalists for Motoring 91's Car of the Year.
Obviously, the overall Car of the Year has to come from the cars that won the individual categories. Narrowing these 5 to 3 and then eventually to 1 was a very difficult task. Each has had in their own right a major impact on the market. The 3 finalists boiled down to the Chrysler Magic Wagon, the Ford Explorer, and the car I couldn't resist, and therefore the winner of Motoring 91's Car of the Year award, the Acura NSX.
Hi, I'm Dennis Manning, and on behalf of Acura, I'm proud to accept the 1991 Car of the Year award for the NSX.
The NSX, Motoring 91's Car of the Year, and Graham Fletcher, I don't think it was a tough decision.
Not at all. For me, it's the epitome of everything that's great about the car industry today.
Mr. Kenzie, you wouldn't have a comment on this, of course.
Well, you know, I kind of lobbied for the Citroën de Chevaux myself, but hey, the NSX could find a spot in my garage.
Okay, we're running out of time. One final question for both of you. What advice could you give the consumer when he or she goes out to purchase a car in 1991?
Make sure it suits your lifestyle and your needs before you buy.
Jim?
Make up a short list of 3 or 4 cars that interest you and concentrate on them. There's too many good cars to study them all.
And remember, keep on watching Motoring 91. Well, that is it. It's been fun. So for Jim Kenzie and Graham Fletcher, I'm Brad Diamond. We'll see you next week for more stories and a lot more cars on Motoring 91. Jim, next time you wear a tux, don't wear the blue pants with it.
Hey, on
It's embarrassing.
Short notice is the best I could do, and besides, I really like your shoes. They really go well with you.
Well, you can always count on me for the class.
What a guy, what a guy.
Motoring 91 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.